Get up and running. There you go.
Good evening and welcome to the Monday, June 15th, Maplewood City Council special meeting. Tonight is a budget meeting. I'm sure it's going to be absolutely scintillating. We're going to learn a lot from Mr. Rube. Tonight I wanted to ask Mr. Sable, because I know I'm getting questions about what are we doing for the 250th birthday of the country. And so I thought Mr. Sable can kind of talk a little bit more in detail. Council members, if you remember at our last meeting, we talked about the 250 acts of neighborliness. We're going to have banners, flags, but Mr. Sable has some other details. So would you share that for the council and for everyone?
Certainly. Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. So it is the 250th celebration of the founding independence of America, our Declaration of Independence. This is nominally a federal holiday, right? This, the larger activities that you're going to see generally are going to occur at the federal level at a kind of a large scales events that you can see through kind of percolating up, primarily focused in Washington and Philadelphia. And colonial states. And so when we get requests for what's happening here, so we have settled on choosing 250 acts of neighborliness that will start on the 4th of July, and we're asking residents to do something nice for their neighbors or do something nice in their neighborhood. Snap a picture, shoot a video, do something that captures that piece, tell us their story. And then Joe Sheeran and our communications team are going to actually pull together all of those stories to kind of capture like a full video montage of all of the acts of service. And so what we'll have like a little counter or a little ticker on the website to say, here's, we're on our march up to 250 acts of neighborliness. And so what we have, once we get to that number, then we'll put together all of this in sort of a celebratory video that highlights all the great things that are happening that in our neighborhoods with neighbors to neighbors helping each other. And so I don't know how long that will take, but we know that our faith community is very interested in this. Our service clubs have all asked to be part of this conversation as well. And it will also, we'll do an important pitch at our National Night Out in August. So that kind of that first month will be really promotional efforts to get people to do something nice in their neighborhood. Hopefully it turns into something great that we can celebrate. I know the spirit in the community is of one of giving, and so I think this will be a very easy thing for us to pull together. In terms of the day of the 4th of July, there is not going to be a fireworks display sponsored by the city of Maplewood, but we are ordering flags and things for our parks, and so it will have a festive atmosphere. In addition, we've ordered banners for the community center and also changing our not only our monument sign in front of the community center, but we also have access to a billboard that runs intermittently throughout. So we'll also talk about, right, City of Maplewood celebrates America's 250th. So if you're getting calls and you're getting emails about what's happening, what we're encouraging people to do is primarily look to the larger events because they can afford to do more things, and then also have them start thinking about ways that they can contribute and give back to their neighborhood. It's going to be an incomplete answer. There are going to be people who want more. There are going to be people who want less. We are trying to navigate that sweet spot of something that is meaningful and impactful and gives appropriate celebration to our 250th anniversary. So with that, Mayor and council members, happy to stand for any questions or do things for clarity. So,
Question, when will people start learning about this initiative?
The banner signs have been ordered and will be hanging up on the MCC later this week. And in terms of the 250th promotion, I will defer to Joe Sheeran, who is not here tonight, but it has been our intent to have this rolled out because we do have about 3 weeks. So it'll be quick.
Wonderful. Council members, any other questions? Okay, then let us do our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Sable is also stepping in for City Clerk Sint. Would you do the roll call for us, please?
I will. Councilmember Villavicencio.
Here.
Councilmember Lee.
Present.
Councilmember Juneman. Here. Councilmember Cave.
Here.
Mayor Abrams.
Here as well. Thank you, council members. We need to approve our agenda tonight. Would someone like to make that motion?
So moved. Second.
Seconded by Cave, the motion to approve our agenda for tonight. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We have no unfinished business tonight. We have one item tonight, and that is our 2027 budget. Mr. Sable, did you want to kick this off, and then we'll turn it over to Joe Rube?
Certainly. Thank you, Mayor and council members and members of the public who are watching at home. This is, as you know, one of the things since I became city manager, I had wanted to expressly have more robust conversations around the budget document. It's arguably the most important document that we pulled together. And so last year, I believe we had 14 council meetings where we discussed or talked about the budget in some various form. I think we are going to meet that number or potentially exceed it by one this year. And so what we wanted to give you was a little bit of deeper dive into the history of the budget. So, you know, we talk about often this year and maybe the year before, but you lose track of because the world changes so fast and there's so much going on in Maplewood that I thought it'd be helpful to kind of have a 5-year look back. And so we've got some deep dive numbers into what we've seen over the last 5 years. And as you know, one of the things that the city council was really keen on was building out a 10-year financial forecast. So looking back 5 years, looking ahead 10 years, really gives us that full spectrum. And so we're going to try to bring all of these together. And so we thought, just based on the way the schedules worked and our calendars worked, it was appropriate that we have a special meeting where we talk just about the budget. And what we also will talk about tonight is some context for how we compare to our neighboring cities around us. And so making sure that you know that that what we do it's a high standard, it's a high rigorous standard. We try to follow benchmarks and guidelines across not only best practices nationwide, but also to compare ourselves locally. And so this is an informal conversation. It's supposed to provide context and depth because the budget document at the end of the day is a statement of what you value and what the community values. And so having just a deep conversation around context, I think, is really critically important. And Joe and we asked where he should sit, if he should stand at the podium or if he should sit. So I'm going to defer to his judgment on how that works. But the other thing I'll say is I may jump in periodically just because to provide some context, and there's some department heads in the room who can also answer very specific questions if you have them.
Great, thank you. Mr. Rube?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm glad we have a packed house for our 2027 budget discussion. We don't have any canines or any other special effects with us today, but happy to go through it with you, discuss it, take a deeper dive. If there's any questions, we'd be happy to look into it or answer them if we have them right off the bat. So, some of these slides you'll see from previously this year or prior years, similar, just so you can follow along with exactly how we've done this process year after year and how we keep on expanding it. So part of the overview is that we want to keep in consideration the council priorities. We look at city leadership for review and developing the budgets, our budget engagement, outreach, financial management plan, EDA, our dedicated budget website, and then department presentations that we'll have towards the end of the year, and then finally adopting our 2027 budget. With the city council priorities, we as staff are happy to look into and discuss any priorities that the council may have. Whether it's your idea or an idea from the community, we're happy to hear about it and listen and look into it. Whether it's public safety, parks, buildings, debt, or any other thing, we're willing to take a deeper dive. For our key stakeholders, it would be residents, businesses, council, and staff, as well as our future residents and future businesses that we have coming in. We have quite a few residents that will be moving in with our different multi-family developments, and as well as Century Ponds, so we want to keep in mind what their needs are as well. To get feedback from our stakeholders, we continue with our robust budget engagement. So this year we added in a handout at our spring cleanup event that went out to over 200 residents. It's a full-size piece of paper, one side with the budget and the other with other events going on with the community. But the important, well, arguably the most important part is the budget side. That has the receipt of what taxpayers could expect for 2026, a breakout of how it's being allocated between their tax dollars allocated between the county, the city, the schools and other districts, and then the QR code, giving them an opportunity to link up with our website to complete a survey, and then our budget engagement calendar.
Mr. Sable? Oh, Councilmember Cave.
I just have a question. Did we get any of those surveys back from the QR code?
I don't have the results for it, but communications would have that. unless
Okay.
City Manager Sable.
Thank you.
Mr. Sable?
The survey is live and ongoing, so we can get, as feedback comes in, we will incorporate it into it. So it is on our webpage, and so people can fill it out as they're going. So if they have an idea, it doesn't have a fixed timeline, it doesn't turn off.
But it's been used?
It's been used, yes, it
Okay.
has been used. And so what we tried to do with this page, and as you all know, this is your property tax bill is a complicated piece of information because it does include city, it does include school district, it includes the county, and it includes other special taxing districts. So when you look at that page and you hold that document, you realize that the city share is just a portion of your property tax bill. And so people often will get, they'll get their property tax statement and they'll be frustrated and they'll see all of these increases, and then the city will only be a very specific portion of that. So we tried to put that in the bottom. The other piece that we've put in there, we did the budget engagement calendar that I want to at least reinforce. That doesn't include all of the presentations like it doesn't include this one, for example, and it doesn't include the department presentations that you'll also hear. So, it's an incomplete picture because there are more things on there. And then I'll just add the little bit of receipt that we put in there is to provide a little bit of context. Okay, so if your median value home tax bill is this is what this per month price is. And so there are a lot of things that go into running an organization, a really complex organization. So giving people some level of detail about what that looks like. And so what is a monthly bill for a police department or a fire department? So we have found that to be helpful. And so we will have these out at our upcoming Celebrate Summer events. We'll have them at our, Touch a Truck and Friday Night Fireworks and all of the things that are out there. We'll have this budget document available. So you're going to see more and more people having this in their hands. And we also have I'm going to save the next slide because I know what it's going to say, but we really are trying to be intentional about giving people opportunities to both learn more, but also provide some feedback.
Thank you.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Roop?
One other thing I'd like to just add on with the dollar bill, I think it is helpful in that how City Manager Sable mentioned it. It is several different components, but we still get phone calls asking like, well, why are you doing this? Or why does the school need this? The city of Maplewood does not have that information. We don't have any control over how the school's spending the money, the county's spending the money, and that it's just one component of it. So all that does go back to each of those entities. And then on the TNT, in the notices that they receive, it does give meeting dates when it comes up to the TNT and that for final budget. So residents do have the opportunity to come talk to council here as those meetings allow, but then also to the county and schools.
Councilmember Cave?
One more follow-up question. Is there a possibility that we put a number for Ramsey County and a number for the school districts the next time we put something out, so people, it's an arrow. If you want to go to Ramsey County questions, go here, Maplewood, go to the QR code, in the school, just so they understand that the dollar bill isn't all Maplewood.
I think that's a good idea. Sounds like communications can easily do that.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Next item is our Maplewood Living. There it is. Okay, sorry. I'm looking at the wrong page on my desk. The Maplewood Living, so on here are screenshots of our May and June issues on the budget portion. So on May, as a front part of the front cover on the left-hand side in the blue, which includes that QR code, bringing them to our website. And then for the June issue, it provides additional information, similar information as previously with the dates, the the receipt, as well as the QR code. And then our dedicated budget website has the following information on it, and then you'll see at the top, there's a purple little icon for fill out the survey. That's where residents and businesses can go out and submit their thoughts. And then for the actual survey, this is what it looks like. So it is active, but residents can go out and pick up to 4 options to indicate where their priorities are. And then if they want to add any other information, they can include that on this page. So leading practices when it comes to the budget.
Mr. Sable?
I'm going to take this opportunity this time to ask the council, is there anything else that you want us to be at, or is there anything that, in terms of engagement or outreach, that we ought to try differently? Because you'll hear about it before we will, and so this is kind of an opportunity to just, is there anything else that you would want us to kind of do in terms of outreach?
Councilmember Lee?
Thank you, Mayor. I think we've done, there's the more the merrier, and I'm thinking right now we currently host all of our budget discussions here in the council chamber. I think it'd be interesting to see if we can bring these discussions to the community, so maybe perhaps hosting one over at Edgerton Elementary, maybe another one down in South Maplewood at the, some kind of center down there. So I think that way, at Carver Elementary or something like that, so that way it's just a budget discussion. Bringing the conversation to the community, I think that'll really bring, hopefully you'll bring people out, and that way it's an opportunity for people to engage if they want to, versus coming here.
So just for clarity, can you be a little bit more specific about it? Are you talking about actually conducting a council meeting outside of council chambers? Because then we have all of the technology issues. Anytime you get more than 2 of us together, then there's a quorum. And so it has to be posted, and then IT, communications, they would be responsible for figuring that out. So tell us a little bit more about how you actually envision that, recognizing that, we've got the open meeting law that we have to follow, also data practices, and so.
No, thank you for that, Mayor. I don't necessarily think it has to be a council meeting. It could just be a staff-driven meeting where it's a budget meeting for the community. So we can show up. I mean, there's events where we are going to just we may show up. It's not that we intend to be there, but this is really just a community conversation in South Maplewood about budgeting, maybe run by our city manager, Mike Sable, or other members of the finance team. So it's just really a community conversation. I don't necessarily think it needs to be a council meeting. This is just a conversation piece, and staff can certainly talk to our staff, to the community about what's important to the community members so they can share feedback at that location. And I think it'd be a great opportunity for our little display too, for people to come in to have conversations and just drop in coins and showing the community what's important for them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Sable.
Madam Mayor, council members, Councilmember Lee, we can certainly look at that option and figure out a time and place.
Council members, let's hear what other people have to say. Did anyone have their Councilmember Villavicencio, maybe your
Yeah,
light
my
is not
button wasn't working properly.
Okay, sorry.
I guess maybe I misunderstood the question, but I thought we were discussing other places or events that we can have this discussion. And so I remember that at the fire station, Mr. Joe had a wonderful display and discussed the budget that way with folks. And so I thought that's what we were talking about. And so I think there's a lot of places that we could do that. Like, I don't know if we have plans on doing that at like the Friday night fireworks, or the other place I was thinking about is the farm. When they do their farmers markets would be a good place to have a little booth at least once or twice this summer.
Mr. Sable or Mr. Rube, do you want to outline for us the number of places where the budget materials, the handout that you showed us, and then also that wonderful game, dropping the coins into different slots so that people can identify what their priorities are, and then we record that. Where are the places that we already have on our schedule where we are going to be speaking about and giving an opportunity to the community to talk about the budget?
Yes, Mayor and Council, thank you. At this point, we have two external engagements with just basically a little booth from the Finance Department. The first one is July 8th at Celebrate Summer, and the other one is September 18th at the Friday Night Fireworks. In addition to that, we're open to conversations, like so at the spring cleanup event when we handed out the flyer, if people were waiting in line, they had the opportunity to ask us questions, which is just another opportunity to put our faces in front of them and open up that potential conversation.
Mr. Sable, can you add anything else to that?
Madam Mayor, members of the council, we're certainly happy to entertain more options, right? I understand the desire is for more engagement and more touches. I think the other thing I will say is that the flyer regarding the budget, we will also include in our National Night Out packets that we give to those neighborhood groups. So, you know, every party will get a handful of flyers, and so, and as we go vehicle to vehicle, we'll be equipped to have kind of a quick handout for folks to talk about that as well. So, you know, we'll certainly look at, I mean, I have no problem setting up a booth on the, for a farmer's market at the farm, or finding an opportunity to potentially add more at the Carver Elementary. It just, it's just a function of time and space. And so as long as we have time and space, we can pull those off.
Okay. Councilmember Cave, your thoughts on it?
I'm sorry.
On
More? Sure. The more the merrier. All the ideas are good. I mean, I like going down to Carver. I think we should eventually have a city council meeting down at Carver, because the South really needs that. And this could be a possibility to do both. And if we can't, then I think Chambry's idea of just doing a, you know, staff meeting down there, just so people can get together. I think you'd pull more people if you did a city council meeting down there, and then had a workshop prior with the budget. I just think that pulls more people. And, but if we have to do the other one, I'm good for that too.
And that's what the goal is how do we get more people out?
Yeah.
My concern is
Yeah.
would people, without being Celebrate Summer or the fireworks or National Night Out, would people come to just simply talk about the budget? I'm
I don't
not
think
sure that
so.
we would get
That's why I
very much
think,
of a turnout.
yeah, I think if you did something with Carver, you definitely want to tie in the ponds and the police firing range.
Kathleen, or Councilmember Juniman, your thoughts?
I agree with Rebecca.
Okay. Councilmember Lee?
I just want to say, I mean, this is something we've never done before. Budget numbers is something not everyone, I mean, it's definitely not something for everyone. So I think it's something interesting where we can try. It might not work out. We might get 2 people that shows up, but then I think that will be a learning opportunity for our staff and for us to really understand what is important for people. So I think trying something new, it doesn't hurt at all. So.
I think you kind of got the read from the council.
more there.
Oh,
Your button was on.
Councilmember Villavicencio.
Oh, that's okay. Maybe my question or comment is for another moment. But just to add on to what Councilmember Lee said, that I think, you know, I was actually at a Beacon event where they were talking about their budget. And the way that they did it was really interesting. They kind of did a 101 on how a budget operates. And they did it where people were dressed up as buckets. And each person had a different color bucket, and they explained, like, this is the blue bucket, and this has this. So, I mean, I don't know, maybe not this year, because that would probably take some planning, but maybe in the future, something to kind of, because, yeah, not everybody gets, you know, financial education. So, and my other comment was if we could talk about a website a little bit, or the survey. I just tried it, and you have to do all 4 to be able to submit. And I thought that we had talked before about maybe allowing people if they only wanted to do 1 or 2, if possible. And then my other comment about the survey is it's just the 2 questions. I mean, I'm wondering if there's, because like, okay, you have the 4, you pick 4 of the different categories, and then a general question of what do you want the policy makers to know? You know, once again, if I'm a person that doesn't have a lot of financial education, I don't know what to say. So maybe if there's some like a little bit more, or another, maybe one or two multiple choice type of questions to give people an idea.
Could you suggest what those questions would be, rather than,
I mean,
we can't have our staff just
Sure.
guessing. So
Well-
I think some more direction would be helpful.
yeah,
Are
I
you-
mean, if I had some time, I can't like come out of it right off the top of my head.
Okay.
But I would love to work with Joe or whomever to do that.
Okay,
This just brought me up, and we could be talking about this later, but on the budget survey, since we're doing surveys, I'm really big at getting as much bang for the buck, and if you have somebody filling out a survey, is there a way we can even have, I know it's a budget, but it's a budget topic is our, the tax that we were trying to get.
local option sales tax.
Yes. Is there a way we can throw that also in there for people to say, hey, there's a possibility of this, is this an interest for you? Or, nothing too in-depth, but putting some type of questions about that, because I really think we need to hit on people, not just who went to the community center, which is a great pick, but if we get this out there and somebody's gonna fill it out, if you don't have it super long, they're gonna answer the questions, truthfully.
Mr. Sable, your thoughts?
Mayor and council members, we can certainly expand that survey option. I think this is one of the benefits of having as much time as we have, because, right, there are really two key critical dates, tongue twister. One is in September, which is the setting of for the preliminary levy, and the other is the final vote in December. And so I think with this being in middle of June, I do think we have a time to test out and evolve, because this is, I will say, this is probably the most robust budget conversations we've had as a community in the city's history. So, we can keep trying, we can keep tweaking until we get it correct. And so I have no problem sort of expanding this or including other topics. We're not locked into one way of thinking on this one.
Councilmember Lee?
Thank you, Mayor. Something that I've just been thinking a lot about too is, as we're talking about the survey, I agree with both of what you both have said, but I think when we look at this survey, there's no number that I can put these things to. So if we can maybe mention, if it makes sense to mention what our levy is, how much our total is. So when we would think about this, it's $32 million. How does that, if I were to allocate that, how would I allocate that? Or do we maybe just put $1 up there and say, if you had $1, how would you allocate it to these departments? So that way there's a number to how people are putting their places.
Which I think is very similar to what Mr. Rube did with his game, where he drops, people can pick where the coin, what their priorities are.
Yeah.
So I think we're already accomplishing that, but I like the idea of maybe expanding it. You have to be careful with surveys, because if people believe that it is going to take them 20 minutes, they are less inclined to engage in a survey. So there is a sweet spot, and we will trust that staff can figure out what that sweet spot is, where we can get some meaningful input from our residents and not scare anyone away from yet one more survey. Mr. Sable?
This may be a response that Mr. Rube wants to answer, but I think that one of the things that when you have you have 10 chips and you have 6 things to choose from, one of the comments that people often make is, well, this is really hard to decide. I like all of these things. They're all important. And so it's that the value is sort of understanding the trade-off, that we cannot do everything that the community wants, and that you are faced with really hard choices at the end of the year. And so part of what helps make that decision a little bit easier are all of these things that we're doing that lead up to that. I think our goal at the end of the day is to, by the time we reach the middle of December, you will have had every possible question answered. And unfortunately, we just don't know what those questions are today, but they will continue, the conversations will continue, the refinement of the budget will continue until we get to the end. But, it is a difficult decision ultimately, because someone's going to be disappointed in every choice you make.
That's very true.
Unfortunately, and that's why we work as staff to give you as much information to at least explain it in a way that makes sense to you.
Thank you. Mr. Rube, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you. I'll just mention with that coin game, I think we could really incorporate other departments in there to host events like community development or maybe IT or that, just because ultimately, like City Manager Sable said, they have the 6 and then they're looking for the extra 4. Well, we've noticed that if we're at the fire station, they go, yeah, this is a nice fire station, and they put it towards fire. And if we're at parks, they put it in the park. So maybe IT will have their own event coming up.
Okay.
So leading practices with the budget process. So as City Manager Sable already brought up, the financial management plan that we had our consultants at Ellers help us with last year broke down quite a bit of information, looking at several different funds. The biggest one that is dependent on the tax levy is the general fund, which is our day-to-day operations for most of public safety, community development, finance, admin, public works, and that. So these spreadsheets, these are just snapshots of our spreadsheets that they use, but it captures revenues and expenditures for many different areas, general fund, our debt funds, EDA, capital projects, fleet, IT, ambulance fund, other utility funds, and then it also factors in the growth of the potential growth of the community and what's to be expected, and then special levies that might be needed for capital projects. So here's another section of that, looking at other financing sources, and then this is kind of where it ties together our debt and special levies.
Mr. Sable.
Those last 3 slides are purposefully hard to read because it sort of indicates like how big of a operation this is. So this is an opportunity just to thank Joe and his staff for putting the effort into, not only is it quality accounting, but it's called quality forecasting. And we have a wonderful partner in Ellers who helps us think through, if we add 2,000 residents in the Ponds development, or 900 more people, what will that mean for service? When will we need potentially another police officer? When will we potentially need a different service model down there? How much more parkland are we going to need to maintain, and what does that look like? And there's a lot of factors that go into this, and so this is not meant to overwhelm you, but it is just sort of intended to show that we try to think about everything. Invariably, we'll get some things wrong, but we'll get many of them right because it's a kind of a rigorous process, and we do rely on our auditors and our financial advisors and everybody that plays a role in the financing. So you don't have to read every number, but I know that Joe Roop does.
Councilmember Cave.
Yes, just a question on these slides, Joe. What is something when we are looking at the budget that is kind of our outliers going to be this year? Is there anything that's going to stick out to, that we should see that we don't see every year for the budget? Like, fleet, is there going to be, some building that needs repair? Is there something in 2026 that we're going to be looking at that we don't normally do?
Sure, thank you, Mayor and Council. When it comes to revenues, there's some revenues that we'll be anticipating, or we didn't necessarily budget for because we weren't anticipating with that. But some of that would be like building permits when we have some of the projects coming forward. So we do our best guess, but it's hard to know what's coming exactly and when. So there's some fluctuation, can be some fluctuation there. When it comes to expenditures, for the most part, I can't think of anything major coming up that's not already part of the CIP process.
Okay.
We don't like to do that because we don't want to be surprised on our end when it comes to the funding, but we don't want council to have to come up with something unless it's an emergency need. So we do take that, our 5-year capital improvement plan to heart, and we have to plan these things out. We want to put things out. As we continue to grow on our processes, we want to take a look even 10 years out for capital improvement, where we're at with our equipment, where we're at with our buildings. We won't necessarily forecast that in the full document, but we might bump up things that are year 6 or 7 to year 5. So it's on council's radar a little bit quicker. But I'm not aware of anything that's outside of the normal or something that you haven't seen yet. We don't like to surprise council.
No, I know. You brought up a great idea, though, the capital improvement for buildings. I know that's something that we hadn't planned prior. We didn't have all that. So is that going to be, that's going to be something that we're going to have to talk to our constituents about. That's an expense we have to put in there for. And where is that going to come in the plan?
That's in slide 24 and 25. No, it's later on in the presentation,
Okay.
but yes.
Oh, okay.
That
All right,
is the
thanks,
topic of
Jeff.
conversation
Okay.
for tonight.
Thank you.
Oh, I just would like to mention as well, you can see some of the gray-blue lines. As we take a look towards the future, always trying to anticipate what's to come, we have different positions that are coming on board within the city that we're anticipating. They're not approved yet by council or that, and other changes that might come through. So we take a look at our prior years and then look towards the future. For our EDA budget, I love bringing this up and having this conversation, especially with CEDA, because they like the dedicated levy that council approved last year for the $636,000. This is something that not every city does, and this is something that our council, you as council members, put into place to really help our community grow and develop. It's just a huge commitment by council to reinvest in what we have in our community and hopefully expand on it. So on this slide, you'll see our revenues for the EDA and that dedicated levy for $636,000. I want to point out under the other category and with the local affordable housing aid, $587,000 is what we're anticipating for 2026. And then on this next page, you'll see in 2027 under capital outlay where that's being spent. Under the 2026 budget request, we have $221,510 for capital. That is based off of the prior year. So that would be funding from 2025 or aid that we received in 25. So it's off by a little bit, but it's hard to spend that money right away. So we do have it and carry it over to the prior year or to the next year.
Mr. Sable.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor and Councilmember. So one of the joys of the legislature when they approved the local affordable housing aid is they put a spending cap. You had to spend the money, and I'm looking at Ms. Parr, I believe it was within 4 years of getting the local affordable housing aid. And what we have learned over time is that cities that get their act together and build programs and build services and spend that money often get a second bite at the apple. So if a city doesn't spend it within 4 years, it goes back into the fund. We might be able to access those. And so that's why the partnership with Habitat for Humanity is really important. That's why the things that we have done with the EDA and the work that you did as commissioners to do a strategic plan also then makes it easier for us to use that local affordable housing aid money. And so, and also just tie in the opportunity to do housing rehab loan programs comes out of that capital outlay. So we anticipate spending the money more quickly. It belongs in the community, and B, there's a potential for us to get a second round of additional funding if cities don't spend it. So we're trying to be aggressive and be smart.
And leverage the funds, really, to
Yeah.
maximize
Yeah.
them for our community. I think that's great. Mr. Rube.
Thank you. So looking at some uncertainties that we have when we look at the budget process. So federal government, state government, and local county, and then ultimately that can trickle down to the local government for the city of Maplewood. So we don't know what's happening all the time at the feds, with the feds or at the state level. So we have to be cautious of that. Local government aid. Taking a look at that, and I'll get into that slide next. And inflationary impacts, the Economic Development Authority, and then tax increment financing. So we do have many opportunities when it comes to TIF within the pooling and our opportunities to expand and continue growth in the community. For local government aid in 2026, we are receiving just under $2.1 million. Local government aid is something that could potentially go away at some point or decrease. We don't want it to, but it is one of those things that's very helpful to the city. Because of that, and like I said, some of the uncertainties in that, we don't want to use that for operational expenses. We currently are using part of it for operations to help offset the ambulance fund. However, the idea would be to use it for one-time capital needs and improvements. It could be between buildings, vehicles, parks, and many different things. Just if that funding goes away, we might have to alter something that we purchase, big capital items for the city, but we don't want to use it for operations. I will say with the local government aid as well, it's one of those things that if we didn't have that and we wanted to buy a piece of equipment, that could be potentially $500,000, $1 million. If we didn't get this local government aid, we might not get that piece of equipment, or we'd have to issue debt if it's something that we really needed. Fiscal disparities, that has increased for the most part over the last 10 years, which is good. $4.6 million is the allocation for 2026. The nice thing about this is that it helps offset the levy. So our budget, and you take that and what the levy would be, remove the fiscal disparities, and that's what's allocated. So all of this directly does impact our residents and businesses. For fund balance policy, our fund balance policy is stated that we like to have a minimum of 41.67% and a desired level of 50% of our general fund operating expenditures. The 41.67 is not just a number pulled out of anywhere, it's 5 months out of the year, but ideally we like to be closer to 6 months of expenses. Part of the reason that we need to have something so high is just in case something does happen. If some of our aid does fall through, the emergency comes through and it's above and beyond what we have. But also because our property taxes come in at different points throughout the year. So we don't get property taxes January through May. That's when they're collecting it from the residents, and then the city gets our first disbursement in June. So we don't have any of the tax levy coming in for those first 5 months. So we have to plan accordingly and make sure that we have the cash on hand to cover our costs.
Councilmember Lee.
Thank you, Mayor. Just out of curiosity, how do we stand in terms of our fund balance compared to a lot of other cities around us? I think often about, how do we best use our residents' tax dollars? I mean, if we have too much in there, what are some of the possibilities? I mean, I know we have to have at least 6 months is a good number, but what does that look like?
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. I don't have a clear idea, but I can take a look at how we compare to other cities. Is this because I think Maplewood's unique? No, but it is something that we do take a look at and we keep in consideration. So at the end of 2024, we were actually at 69.3%. So it is on the high side. However, that is looking at 2024. Once you jump into 2025 with the expenditures being higher, it actually drops down closer to the 63%. So it each year, it can lower depending on what's going on. Part of the reason why it did increase significantly over a few years was the number of building permits that we had coming in. Things that we weren't anticipating, and we had boom with the hail storm that came through and all the permits that came through for the new roofs and that really threw the revenues way over expectations. And then also due to vacancies. So our expenditures have come in under budget quite a bit for the last few years. Part of that is vacancies. When you have a bigger departments like police and fire, there's potential for turnover, retirements or that. And at that point, it drops down those expenditures. And then with a city like ours, Maplewood, where our employees generally like to stay here. They seem to be happy with the culture and where they work. So we end up having people that are here for 20, 30 years. They retire and we might have a handful of them. The new people coming in are making significantly less. So that does contribute towards the fund balance increases as well. But it is something that we can take a look at where we're at with that. In the past, we have done allocations out of the general fund reserves, and that has gone to parks, fleet, other capital areas of buildings and stuff like that. Not a whole lot, but it has been allocated out in the past.
I just want to say thanks for explaining that, and thanks for tying in the hailstorm component. As much as I love the revenue, we don't want any more hailstorms, though.
Mr. Sable?
Thank you, Mayor and council members. I was an interesting question that you asked. I generally try to know a lot about what's going on in neighboring cities just to make sure that we're benchmarked. And so and staff are laughing because I have this compulsion with numbers and comparisons. And so I don't know the answer to what the fund balance is of peer cities. So I'm intrigued. I can't wait to go dig a little bit deeper into that. So I appreciate that. The second piece I will say is when we get our audit findings report in the next couple of meetings, we will have a final number of what that fund balance, general fund balance is as a percentage. And what we'll present to you is some options of what would you like to do. If there is any number above 50%, what would you like to do? And so it could be bolstering the capital fund. It could be transferring to the EDA to help with acquisitions of strategic properties. And so we want to make sure that what we collect gets used and what we collect gets used well. And if there is, for various reasons, an increment, how do we convert that into the best public good? And so that's a conversation you all will have in the next 3 meetings.
Mr. Rube?
Thank you. Each year, the city goes through a rating process. Generally, it has been with S&P. The last one was dated June 18th of 2025. We'll have one in July of 2026. As of 2025, they take a look at all the city's finances, what's going on in our community, and then they kind of rate us to see how we are. It's basically a credit rating for the city. So last year, they affirmed our AA+ rating, which is second highest. It's very, very good. And then for our outlook, it's a stable outlook, and that we're well positioned for the future in that. So it's great to have that. Ultimately, we love a AAA, but a AA with the stable outlook is wonderful. When we look at the downside scenario, it really has to do with the economy. It's something that we can't necessarily control. And then if the economy's bad and we have weak revenue performances based off of building permits or that could have an impact on it, as well as our reserve balances. So one of the things that they do take a look at are our fund balances, and they see that they are healthy. We're less of a risk because we have the ability to cash flow and take care of the needs of the city. On the upside, as you're aware, council made it a priority to have our debt under $50 million, and several years back, it was over $80 million. So I'll touch base a little bit more towards the end of the slides, but we're projected to be around $47 million at the end of this year. So it's great. We've made huge progress on it. So that's one major impact, as well as the comparing us to other cities comparable to our size and our economic metrics and that. So things like any new development, redevelopment really does help the city improve and keep that stable outlook. Speaking of outlook, for 2026, we have 2 major things coming in. So St. John's Hospital, their expansion, that's going to be huge for Maplewood, not just because of the building permit revenue, but bringing people into the community. It gives our businesses opportunities to expand. It brings more employees and people into the city that are looking for homes, potential of other new development in that area, which would be great, as well as Century Ponds with over 200 homes coming in. There's also building permit revenue with that, but ultimately the tax levy is now allocated between an additional 200 plus homes. So that will really that will help, and it'll take a while to get that onto the tax rolls because they have to build it, and it takes a few years to get them fully taxed and on the rolls, but eventually we'll start seeing that trickle in. And then on the right side of the screen is just a snapshot of our website and then the different projects. And then if any residents or businesses want to kind of see what's going on with our Community and Economic Development Department, there are links here that can explain some of those projects that are going on. Taking a look at 2026 tax levy increases, so as you'll see here where Maplewood's highlighted, it's 7.9%. So we're about at the halfway mark, so we're doing well. And then comparing the 22 to 26 levies within the other cities, the highlighted box moved on me, but so that's not our city. But for Maplewood, we're at 40.9% increase over that 5-year period. So still doing well. We're definitely not on the higher side. For our tax rate, this is kind of based off of how, what our levy is at and what is charged back to residents. So it ultimately affects the tax burden on each property. So it's the property's tax capacity multiplied by our rate, so 50% ends up being what their tax bill is. So Maplewood's right now towards the higher side at over 50%. There are other cities in the county that are higher. But that's one of those areas that once our tax capacity and the value of our properties go up in Maplewood, that number should start declining.
Mr. Sable.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. So as Finance Director Rubin and I sort of forecast out and talk through this, we anticipate that number to go down optimistically as soon as next year, but certainly by 2028 and 2029, we would expect the rate to continue to decline. Because one of the factors that drove up is the loss in commercial valuation. And so as the shift has happened, as commercial values became less valuable, that shifted to the homeowners. And so there's this complicated formula around rates that happens. And so as we continue to grow and develop more, we expect the tax rate to go down in the outgoing years.
Councilmember Lee.
Thank you, Mayor. I know we have a 10-year history here. Has there ever been a time before 2017 that was higher than this at all? Because I assume then everyone was in office, property value at that time was probably different.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm not aware of anything looking back that we've ever been this high.
Okay, thank you.
These next few slides are taking a look at the budget to actual. They're not crazy exciting slides, but one of the things I'd like to point out with them is that you'll see if budget to actual for each of these departments, they're pretty close to where they are budgeted. Very few of them are over budget, and that, but yeah, that's 2022. Here's 2023. Again, you'll see that it's all pretty comparable. 2024, and then 2025. The nice thing is what we're budgeting for, we are spending, and we're just accurately budgeting for our departments. This slide is a whole lot of information. It's the department increases by year, so you'll be able to see each year their budget and then the increase from one year to the next. I'll point out, because he's my boss, city manager, Sable's department actually decreased over a couple of those years. 7% one year and 19% another year. So,
Mr. Sable.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. While I appreciate the effort, largely the determining factor of that decrease was the shift in the closure of the DMV. So there's nothing that I have contributed or did that impacted that. In fact, that the main cause of that was the shift in the service model. But what I want to showcase, and this is trying to provide some context for history. The largest expenditures that we have in the city are generally police, fire, EMS, and public works. We have seen those trends over time. They're natural drivers, and I think the one thing I'll say is you've seen value in those expenditures, and so the police department is highly regarded, and I'm going to argue the best run in Ramsey County. I'm hard pressed to name one that would be better than us, and I say that proudly, and then so that it's a testament to Public Safety Director Beardeman, and I will say, if Chief Mondor were here, right, the fire EMS service is outstanding, and they've demonstrated progress towards whether it's response times or the sophisticated level of adding whole blood, and so this is a big, complicated chart from 2022 to 2026. But it shows that there's a pretty consistent pattern of where departments are and what their increases were and what that means, but also where you've made investments, there's been increases in the quality of service. And so I think it's important for the community to see that there is a pattern of consistency and there's also a pattern of quality. And so I think it's helpful to, when you're starting a big budget process, that you actually go back and look and say, okay, it's been a long 5 years coming out of COVID, coming out of 2022 and through 26 and 27. So they're real numbers, they're real impacts on the community, but it's also real quality service delivery to the residents. So feel free to use this, refer to it back, ask questions when the departments come back into their presentations and have these. I think this is a helpful slide and piece of information that gives some historical context.
Thank you. Mr. Rube?
Thank you. This next slide shows the increase from 22 to 2026. So over that 5-year period, you see where each department landed. I'll highlight on fire just because they are at a 72% increase. The biggest portion of that has to do with the investment in that department and adding additional firefighters over the years. So there's an explanation for any and all of this, so if there's any questions on it, but I just wanted to highlight that 72%. This next slide is just a whole bunch of pies. So you can take a look at between 2022 and 2026 where the budget is allocated. When it comes to, as City Manager Stable said, public safety, they have the biggest piece of the pie between fire and police. From 2022 being at 56% up to 2026 being at 60% of the budget. So it's an investment into the community, the safety and security of our residents and businesses, and we can see that, that investment here. Taking a look at the ambulance fund, you can see here the budget to actual over the 5-year period, and actually the budget for 2026 without actuals at this point. You can see that for the most part, it's been pretty close. We've had a couple of years where we've been under budget, which has been good when it comes to the expenditure side of things. And when it comes to the ambulance fund, as we move into the final report from our auditors, we'll have additional conversations about the ambulance fund and where it's at, where we're looking to go with it, and that's just providing council some options. It's ultimately rolling it into the general fund. Council will have to make some decisions on that, but we continue to look at that and monitor it closely.
Mr. Sable?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor and council members. So when I started 2+ years ago, the ambulance fund was the #1 conversation that we had. It was a concern, and it was a fair concern, and it was like we had used some public safety aid, we had used some local government aid, we had done some one-time fixes to try to fix a structural problem, and we really sat down and with your leadership really said, okay, this is a service that's important, let's find a way out of it. I will say, generally speaking, I no longer lose sleep over the ambulance fund. I think we have a path forward. It might not be solved exactly this year, but it's not something that I worry about to the same extent I worry about other things. And so I think we've taken a kind of a slow, methodical approach to kind of reworking this ambulance fund problem, and just know that the auditor's kind of recommendation is we can keep the accounting on the back end the same as we do today. But the rolling it into the general fund is probably the right approach, and that's going to be their recommendation. So you'll see that in a couple of weeks. But the other thing I'll say is that as the community continues to shift, we'll continue to advocate for higher reimbursements rates for Medicare and Medicaid, and we'll continue to support, look at our fees for private pay insurance, and are they in alignment? And so we're looking at all of our options, including, potentially having conversations at the state level about expanding the map to potentially include a different service area that might have a different type of payer mix. Not that I want to be in the insurance business, but we're in the insurance business because we often bill them. And so it's an important conversation, and Public Safety Director Beardeman and Chief Mondor are good partners in thinking through what this means. But I'm confident in saying that I'm less worried about the ambulance fund than I was 2 years ago.
Can you remind the council how long it's been since the federal government has increased the reimbursement rates? President, I think that's the way you characterize it.
Yeah, thank you,
before.
Mayor and council members. I don't know the exact year, but I know that President Clinton was president, so it would have been pre-2000.
And is there any discussion on the federal level concerning these reimbursement rates? Because this is something that is shared by every other city that has an ambulance service?
Thank you, Mayor and council members. The short answer is we always try to advocate on behalf of enhancing the reimbursement rate for transport. Just to give you a sense, order of magnitude, approximately $2,200 per call to go out to a response. That includes all of the costs of a fire EMS, the staffing, the ambulance, the equipment, the vehicles, the cost of what it takes to go. The reimbursement from Medicaid is around $600, $630. And so we'll continue to try to advocate for more money. The other thing that I think is also fairly interesting is the state of Minnesota is looking at a model to provide an extra payment if we provide an enhanced care prior to transport. And so that would be, we are considered to be one of the pilot communities for that, assuming it would pass the legislature, which may or may not happen. And we'll know, and quite honestly, we'll know more in January.
Thank you for that. Mr. Rube?
Thank you. So topic of conversation past as we take a look at the general fund budget is our internal service charges, which are chargebacks to the general fund to fund funds like the IT fund, and our benefits fund and all that. So for our IT fund, you can see here the last 4 years of budget to actual, as well as the 2026 budget. And a key thing to highlight with this is just as we keep on moving forward with technology, there's more and more technology that is helping the city run efficiently and in a secure fashion. And it's not cheap. It comes at a pretty hefty price tag. And this is all things that council, you'll see from the different purchases that are made throughout the year, whether it's software or new equipment and that. A lot of that all runs through the IT fund. It's simple things like cybersecurity. You used to be able to have something a little bit more basic. Now it has to be a lot more robust, but it's also expensive to have cybersecurity too. So now I'd like to move on to some of our capital. So this is one area that we've talked about in the past. Last year we did a city building tour. Highlighted on this page are five buildings that we saw last summer, I believe it was, highlighting the year that they were built and the significant renovations that they have seen. As you can see, hasn't been major reinvestment back into any of our facilities. Wanted to highlight the community center built in 1993. We've done some updates to it, but as you're aware, it needs close to or over $20 million in repairs. Part of the problem is that we haven't had the funding set aside over the years to make sure that we're taking care of these facilities. And it's something that we want to make sure is on council's radar so we can take a look at this in the future. So all of these, I think all of them we saw last year. And this next slide highlights our north and south fire stations, which are two newer buildings, our Wakefield building, which is newer, and then our park maintenance building. So unfortunately, we are not putting funds away for any of these buildings at this point. So if they need any major renovations, we either have to issue debt or defer those to another year. And every time we defer it, it just costs a little bit more. And we don't have a dedicated capital replacement or building replacement fund when it comes to these higher level capital expenditures. With that, each year, did you want
Mr. Rube, I was going to ask the question, we run a pretty tight budget. I know every year that I can remember back in planning for budgets, we've always started with a 0% increase. There are many costs that increase that we have absolutely no control over. What would it take? I know during my time here, we have done, our asset management plan so that we know what our assets are. We know the replacement schedules. So we have done those kinds of pre-planning things in order to make sure that we are thinking ahead to the future. We know that the park maintenance building, we know that the public works building, they're aging facilities. What would it look like to include a dedicated capital replacement fund to anticipate those buildings? You know, it's, what would it take to do that?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I don't have all the answers on that. That's something that we can take a look at. Even from what I've seen, anywhere between on the low side 2 to 3%, upwards to 6 or 7% a year, setting those funds aside for major capital repairs, whether it's a roof or HVAC system, to also planning for replacement of those buildings. So when you're looking at $20 million for repairs on the community center or upwards of $50 million for a new building, it's setting aside quite a lot of funds in order to prepare for that and not issue debt for it. As we take a look at the community center, and it's been the council's priority not to put that fully on debt because it will be a huge financial impact to the residents. The only other way is to pay by cash, or if we have the local option, local sales tax in place to help offset that. So it's something that I think we could look at internally, but then also get assistance from external sources and consultants that have the expertise and the knowledge to help us plan for the future. None of this, it's not easy, but at some point we have to start taking a look at how we can set funding aside.
I'd like to put that into our discussions in the future as we continue to develop this budget. You know, this was the first time after the legislature did the moratorium on the local option sales tax. I've talked to other mayors, I think there were 36 other cities that had, you know, seized this moment. This is the first time since the legislature had lifted that moratorium and opened that up as an opportunity to look at funding for the future for things that our cities need. And so I think what we learned is that it takes longer at the legislature. I think that's what Councilmember Villavicencio said the last time. Don't expect it to happen the first time or something like that. But I think we need to have other discussions because there aren't a whole lot of options. And so I think I would like to include that in the discussion that we're going to have about this budget because we can't count on that. We will try again. I think we've all decided that in 2027. But without that, what are some other options? Because we do need to do planning for some of these. You know, we're a first-ring suburb, and we need to be planning for that. So anyway, those are my thoughts.
Thank you, Mayor.
Sure. Mr. Sable, did you want to say something?
Thank you, Mayor and council members. This is one of those issues that is really complicated and hard because there is not enough money in tax capacity to play catch up to what has been deferred in a lot of cases. And so having worked in a facilities department for Hennepin County, I know this work intimately, and there is no winning and there's no amount of money that is sufficient. You don't have to pay for cash for everything. Some things you should borrow money for if they're going to last over a 20-year period. And so there's no perfect answer. And so but I will say that there is an opportunity to not repeat past mistakes. And I don't even, mistakes is the wrong word, but like a past practice was to not set aside some money. But we know that the North Fire Station is going to need new mechanical equipment in 15 to 20 years. We know that the South Fire Station is going to need an upgrade of their mechanical systems in probably 8 years just to keep it operating fully. So I'm a big believer in you don't have to repeat past practice. You can just say, you know what, going forward in these two buildings, we're going to start to plan ahead. And then, you know, if we are given the opportunity to do a local sales tax for the community center, part of that year's budget will include a little building capital replacement fund. City Hall, we can manage. I think right now we're doing okay, but you know, as we continue to diversify the police department, there's probably going to be a need to have different locker room space or different, you know, configurations as vehicles get bigger, garage basement. So just know that there is no easy answer on capital replacement fund, but we That's why we plan long-term. That's why we build out 5- and 10-year capital improvement plans. But I do worry a little bit about some of our newer buildings falling into disrepair faster.
I certainly think that we have done a good job in terms of our CIP plans and following those as we can, because there are a lot of moving pieces to this budget. And, you know, one of the things that you have to take a look at is that we went through a pandemic and kept our heads above water. And so there's just a lot of moving pieces, but this is the next piece for us to be talking about and including that into our planning. And, you know, it's always one thing that, you know, if you do one thing, then there's something else that you can't do. And it's like our own personal checkbooks, you know. It's about prioritizing and making the best decisions that you can based upon the facts that you have at the time. And so this is one that we need on our radar going forward. Mr. Rube.
Thank you. To the city manager's table's point, ambulance fund doesn't keep me up, but this does keep me up at night sometimes, just because we do have the North Fire Station, beautiful building, but we need to make sure we maintain it so we're not looking at a $10 to $15 million setback at some point. Speaking of capital improvement plans, we do have right now a municipal facility upgrade item in our budget. You can see towards the bottom, the allocation for 2026 to 2030 is around $250,000 to $300,000. That doesn't go very far when you have multiple multi-million-dollar buildings, aging buildings for that matter. Just want to point out on the south side, I should have got an aerial view, but even of our city hall, on the west side of the building, just one side of the roof was about $180,000 to replace. We have the rest of the building going the rest of the way that eventually will need a new roof. So it's that $180,000 takes up a good portion of that allocation from year to year. The funding source generally is the.
Councilmember Lee.
Thank you, Mayor. One of the questions that I had for Mr. Sabo earlier today was this $250,000, like when, do you have a better idea of when this came into place? How did this number come to be? And now we're going to be moving to $300,000, but the reality is the cost of doing business, the cost of everything is going up. Is this a number that still, I mean, does this number still make sense? Is this something we have to talk about to increase sooner so that way we can better be in a better position for other items?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I don't know how long or how far it goes back exactly, but it does go quite a few years back, closer to the $200,000 mark. But to your point, with the cost of repairs and that, it is quite significant. So this is one area that we could look at increasing those figures and that allotment sooner than later, as soon as the 2027 budget, as we look at the 27 through 31 capital improvement plan. This would be an area that we can make a significant increase on it. The funds don't have to necessarily be used all that year, so we could build it up there. We do have a building replacement fund as in the accounting side of things, but for the most part, when we have $250,000, staff look at the needs of the city at the time, and they spend that $250,000. Some of it will go to ADA compliance. Others, they can go to the roof or that. So, but to your point, yes, we should be looking at that, and that's the point of this slide is to kind of show that we're doing a $250,000 investment when it should be quite a bit higher than that.
Can you know, it's always helpful for me to break this down into the percentage of levy increase. So, and I recognize I'm asking you to just kind of give us a ballpark number, but if we were to increase, right now we've got $250,000. If, what levy percentage does that represent? Approximately.
1% levy is $343,490 approximately.
It'd be a, 250,000 is a 0.72.
So 1% is 343.
Yes.
Yeah. So for every just for people who are watching, for every 1% of the levy that we increase, that represents collecting $343,000.
Correct.
And, yeah. It's a lot of money.
That would be a massive levy increase to do it all. And that's why the staff will not be recommending.
It doesn't work like that.
It doesn't work that way.
We cannot tax like that.
Correct.
We don't have that
It is,
ability to
we
do
wanted, we
that.
wanted to
In
put it
order
on the radar. And Mayor and council members, one of the things that I will say is that the easiest way to lower your costs is to lower your square footage footprint. It's just often a function of math. You're heating a space, you're cleaning a space, you're cooling a space. It's the simplest way is to condense your holdings. And I worked for Hennepin County. They owned and operated the equivalent of 5 IDS towers across the county. And then we continued to say, if you want to have a lower cost, you have to lower your building footprint. It's clearly the only way.
Which is contrary to what we just talked about, in that the equipment is getting bigger, the vehicles are getting bigger, and so to have a smaller footprint is contradictory,
Yes.
challenging. Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. Moving on to taking a look at our parks, some of our other major assets. So we have 26 parks in Maplewood, 30 playgrounds, 2 at one park at Sunset Ridge, 6 park shelters that are open for rentals, and then 4 warming houses that have indoor bathrooms, and then Wakefield is the only one that has a year-round permanent outside restroom. So with that, we do have a capital improvement plan for park upgrades for existing parks. Right now, we're allocating between $200,000 and $250,000 per year for that. A main theme that was included in the park system master plan was taking care of what we have. So that goes back to even our buildings, but also our parks as well. So having 36 parks is huge. It's great for the community, but it's something that's not cheap to maintain in that. So this is one area that we're looking at. Park playgrounds can be easily $200,000 to $300,000 per playground. Diving a little bit deeper into the expense of some of the parks, for one of the capital improvement items is for Harvest Park Phase 2. And the Phase 2 focuses on the south side of the park. On the right side is the image is small to see, but there are 4 phases to that park improvement. The allocation for 2026 is about $1.2 million. Phase 1 was around $300,000. And looking out to Phase 3 and 4 will be another almost $2.5 million to completely redo this park in all 4 phases. I wanted to include some pictures of some of our parks so you can kind of see the age of them, the condition that they're in, so you're aware when it comes to $200,000 to $250,000. We have several different park shelters that you can see were built many, many years ago, which is not a problem. However, we just need to make sure that we are allocating enough funding to maintain them. Next, taking a look at debt. As I mentioned earlier, probably 10, 15 years ago, we are over $80 million in debt. At the end of 2025, we're at $46.3 million. And then for 2026, we anticipate to be around $47.6 million in debt. Looking towards the next 10 years, carrying forward that $47.6 million, adding in new debt for street projects or park projects that we have in the CIP currently, and then the debt that we're paying off. You'll see that we're paying off debt quicker than we are adding to it. Looking out to 2031 to 2036, we just put a $4 million placeholder out there, not knowing what things will cost. Hopefully that's not a cost of a playground at that point, but anticipating that we could have some higher costs in the future. Looking out to 2036, we could be as low as $31 million with the current plan that we have in place. And then finally, just wanted to go quickly.
Go back to this. I have to say that, this reduction in debt is a testament to people that have served on our council and our staff. I remember back in 2014, it was $80 million, which was a devastatingly scary number. And the fact that we have been able to do as many positive things in our city while also reducing our debt by $33 million, which includes so much interest that we are not carrying anymore. And I have to say that the decision to focus on that and to recognize that everything comes incrementally, and it's making those challenging decisions boldly, courageously, and saying, we're going to tackle the debt, we're going to reduce it. And now to look in 12 years, paying off $33 million in debt is astronomical. When you consider that we've also built a fire station, we've built Wakefield Park, we have done a number of things. We have redone things here in City Hall. And I think really the key is good judgment. I think that it is recognizing you can't do it all at once. And you need to tackle it and continue with consistency. And I really think, councils have made those tough decisions, but our staff and our finance department has been absolutely stellar in helping us reduce that to something that is manageable. And it's not when I first joined the council, that was a scary number. That's what kept me awake. $80 million, how do you even tackle that? Well, you do it incrementally, kind of like that old adage about how do you eat an elephant? You do it one bite at a time. So this, I think, is a really important number, and it puts things in context for where we've been and where we're headed. So thank you, Mr. Rube, and all the staff that have been part of this in trying to help, and I've, Mr. Sable, we're a city of excellence, so we provide excellent service, but we do it in an efficient and economical way, and we are good stewards of the taxpayers' money. So, thank you for that.
Thank you, Mayor. And then finally, I just wanted to go over the budget process again, highlighting the budget engagement that we had at the spring cleanup, and then the kickoff that we had tonight's special meeting. We'll have a budget engagement at Celebrate Summer, EDA discussion. We'll have a few workshop discussions, and then in September, setting our preliminary levy, another budget engagement at the Friday night fireworks, followed then by department presentations, and then the public hearing to adopt the final 2027 budget and 2027 to 2031 CIP.
Mr. Sable.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. If the finance director can go back one slide. There are no budget meetings scheduled in the month of October. And so as I was brainstorming, sitting here, that could potentially be a wonderful opportunity to consider a special meeting somewhere else or a budget presentation in another area of the city. So I think we'll brainstorm an October opportunity.
Thank you for doing that. Councilmember Villavicencio.
Thank you, Mayor. Speaking of October, we always do a Halloween event here at City Hall. We could have the budget game there. That would be fun. A little scary. The other question I had was this presentation. Like, we typically put all our presentations and stuff on the website. Will this also be on the website in the typical spot where they find the council meeting minutes and presentations?
Mayor, council members, Councilmember Villavicencio, yes, it's part of that's why we made it a special meeting, so it'll fall under the agenda packet. And we'll also include it on the maplewoodmn.gov/budget page.
Awesome, thank you.
Anything else for Mr. Rube? All right, then, council members, we have concluded the business of our special meeting, and with that, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.